Friends, hello. This is Carter. Welcome to this episode of Making It Up, the conversation series where two writers, sometimes three in the case of today's episode, sit down and talk about craft, talk about our individual writing journeys, talk about books, whatever comes to mind, all followed up with a little impromptu storytelling at the end. Quick shout out to my website, unboundwriter.com. If you're looking for individual coaching, one-on-one manuscript development editing, I do that kind of a thing. So you can just go to unboundwriter.com and actually sign up for a free consultation call to see if that's something that might be of interest to you. So today on the show was great. I had two authors on the show today, co-authors. I don't do that all that often, but it was fun to do it today. So I had Simon Gervais and Ryan Steck on the program today, and they are the co-authors of the recently released thriller, The Second Son. So Simon is a former federal agent, and he's got nearly 20 years in military and law enforcement. And he's a #1 Amazon bestselling author of 16 thrillers, including a novel written for the Robert Ludlum estate. And he has multiple series now in development for television. And Simon, I've known for years. We see each other at conferences. We got to know each other through ITW, International Thriller Writers. And so it was good to be able to catch up with him a little bit. Ryan, I wasn't so familiar with. He is the author of multiple thrillers, including Fields of Fire and Lethal Range. And he's also the founder and editor-in-chief of The Real Book Spy, which is widely regarded as one of the most influential voices in the thriller community. So Ryan has had his pulse on thriller writers for years. And it was actually through an interview between Ryan and Simon where they started to connect to get the idea of co-writing together. So I did spend a lot of this episode talking about co-writing because I'm curious. I've co-written one book, and potentially I might do more with other authors. And so I just wanted to pick their brains a little bit about co-writing. It was interesting to hear about their process, their methodology, how they got along, how they meshed, what their actual structure was in getting the work done. And the big question, did it actually make writing any easier? We all have this idea that we're going to cut half the time in terms of, getting books produced if we just simply co-write. But I know that that's not necessarily the case at all. So this is a great one. I had a fun time talking to them. This is my conversation with Simon Gervais and Ryan Steck. So yeah, it's funny. I don't have a lot of episodes where I have two people on, and I'm always so curious about co-writing. Because Simon, I know you okay, and this maybe is the first time you've co-written. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's the first time I'm actually collaborating full time with someone on a book. Of course, like Ryan, he did the Ted Bell's book. I did the Robert Ludlum,
Right,
so it's kind of it's not really co-writing because I was giving like a paragraph that I needed to follow, but I
right,
was building a new world within a known universe.
yeah.
But with Ryan for the Second Son, it's really my first time that I'm like, we're writing together. We're building that structure and that universe together.
Yeah,
So
and
it's
Ryan, is
really,
that
really
the same
cool.
for you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. First time. But I will say it's such a different experience than like when you write by yourself. And you guys off camera or off video here, we're talking about how you pass each other on escalators and this and that. And I didn't even know this was true until like the first interview we did together. Simon's like, "Yeah, we've never met in person." And I didn't know that.
It's
Like, I'd
so
never
weird,
even
right?
thought about it.
Yeah.
And so that's true. And then I realized like 4 months into press for this book, I was like, dude, what if we met each other and hated each other? Like, this could be a good thing, like that we have it, preserve the working relationship, the business side of this. No, it's my first time, and it's been really awesome.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a great point, Ryan, because I feel like I don't know, I'm kind of there right now too. At some point in an author's career, maybe particularly genre author, and maybe an author who's kind of made some traction, you start to get that idea of like, maybe I should co-write. Would that be fun? Would that be interesting? Would it be easier? And I've co-written one novel that we're still shopping. It was just with a friend of mine. It was more of a passion project, but I'm in discussions now to co-write again with somebody else. And that was the first thought. It was like, how are the personalities? Because that I have to believe that's the most important thing, depending on how you divide up the work. So how did you two even connect?
I think, well, Warren like was interviewing me for one of my book, and
Mhm.
he's been covering me since I started in this business back in 2015. And I think over the years, we've kind of formed a friendship or an understanding of each other.
Yeah.
Ryan contributed a lot for the trader community. He's always been very, very supportive. So he's an easy guy to like. He's always been very kind to everybody. And I'm not exactly sure how it happened, but sometime I think, Ryan, you pitched me a project after one interview we did,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it kind
yeah.
of,
All right, so I was interviewing him as a book spy. He came on my Twitch channel, and we were catching up after the interview. And I told him about this kind of like idea, this concept that I had that I liked, and he Simon was really into it, and we ended up catching up a few weeks later, and it was like, hey man, why don't you send me that? I'd love to look at it. So I sent it to him, and then we started talking more, and it was like, I think we could, do you mind if I put my spin on this type of thing? So it was happening very organically, Carter. Then he sent it back to me, and I don't think he liked a single thing I sent him, because it was like a totally new thing. Like it was like, yeah, I really loved your idea. I just did a few things with it, and it was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, there's nothing in here that I'd put in there, but it was all better, And I don't think you can co-write with anybody. I think the biggest thing you have to be able to do with someone is step back, leave your ego at the door, and just really both have the same mindset of like, hey, we're in business together. So like our customers are our readers, and we need to do everything with them in mind. So
Yeah.
every decision we make's got to be for the readers. And we were doing that instinctively already. Like I've been a book spy 11 plus years now. I mean, I know thrillers, and I know when someone has a better idea than me. And so I looked at what he gave me, and it was like, oh man, this is better. And then I had some ideas, and I started putting some of me into there, and it really organically came about where it was like, we should probably try to get a book deal for this if we're going to do it. And Thomas and Mercer, preempted it, and we were off and running. So like from the moment it came up to like we had a book deal was like a few months.
Wow.
yeah.
So and in those few months, the book was completed.
Oh no.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
had like a sample and an outline. That's a new thing for me. So that's the other thing. Like
Right. Because of Simon, you have the relationship with the publisher.
Yeah, exactly. Like I've been blessed to be with them, honestly. Like, to
For a
everybody
long
who's going to
time.
listen, like for a long time. I mean, they really my career, I kind of owed it to them. Like when On Them Down came out in 2019, that was my breakthrough novel. I mean, I was doing okay before, but nothing of
Right.
the chart. But with On Them Down, my career in publishing skyrocketed, and they've always treated me with like family since day one. So for me, the relationship that I have with Thomas and Mercer and Amazon Publishing in general has been superb. They've
Yeah.
done everything right by me. So if there was a way for me to sell that collaboration to them and bring Ryan into the fold, it would be a win-win. And lucky for us, they liked the project and they preempted it based on 50 pages, I think, right? Or maybe 15, I
Yeah.
don't remember, and like
Yeah.
an outline.
Right. And the whole thing is fascinating to me because from the author perspective, this is my take, is just the idea of co-writing on a top level basis feels like fun, just something different, something, to collaborate with creatively. And you usually spend so much time just alone that there's something kind of exciting about it. There's also the allure of maybe like, will it be easier for me because technically maybe I'm doing half the work. I know that's not the case in reality. But then you have all these other considerations, right? Does the story work? Do I get along with this person? Are they going to need a second novel now because no one just wants one? You really have to think about maybe the long-term ramifications, or am I wrong?
No, you're right. I think the most important thing to consider when you want to collaborate is how well you have an understanding of your co-writer. Because what you've talked about, Carter, is about when a relationship goes well. But like me, I'm sure you've heard a lot of collaboration that didn't turn
Totally.
out that great, and people were miserable during that collaboration. Me and Ryan kind of have an understanding between us before we even approach our agent, before we even approach our editor. We kind of had a moral contract between each other. We knew exactly what Ryan would do, what I would do, what our process would be like, because I'm a guy who likes structure. I'm working on a lot of different things at the same time. So I want to make sure that everything is done correctly and by the book. And Ryan was all in. So when you have a good understanding with your co-writer, this is something we say a lot. Once you understand each other, then what is the objective? For us was to write the best book possible to please our publisher and our reader and guarantee a good time to our fans. So when you share that same goal and you're ready to do anything possible to achieve it, then the relationship is very, very easy. And for me, some of my friends ask me, like, out of 10, how would you rate your relationship with Ryan? Like, off the book, Simon. I said, you can ask anyone, Carter. It's like a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Ryan and I had so much fun working together, and there's no issue whatsoever. I'm happy that we just finished book number 2 together, and I would love for the publisher to renew it for another
Yeah.
one.
So Ryan, Simon mentioned about how structured he is and how you
Mm,
had
mm.
that whole collaboration plan in place before you wrote Word One. Did that align? Are you similarly a very kind of structured person and you're like, great, now I have exact boundaries of what I need to do, of what Simon needs to do, and it makes it easier?
No, total opposite. So this is where it was fun. Like I started to say this. I think one of the things you probably don't think about when you're co-writing, it's like, hey, we see the story the same way. Do we get along? Do we like these characters? The process of writing is different for every author, right?
Sure.
So Simon likes a very detailed outline. I would never have done outlines. My first publishing contract was a 2-book deal, and I had the first book done. My agent sold it. First call I ever did with my publisher. We get on the call, and they're like, "We'd love to see the outline for book 2." And I gave like this very artistic answer of like, I don't do outlines, and I like to let the story find me as I go through it. And if I do that, it's not fun. And I did like, and it was just like I could tell it wasn't being received well at all by the faces on the Zoom call. And I remember we hung up. My agent called me immediately, and I
Yeah.
was like, "This is either great news or awful news." And I was like, "Hey, what's up?" And he's like, "That was bold. You don't do outlines." And I was like, "Nah, I don't like out." And he's like, "Shut up. You have like a pretty big payment tied to submitting that outline." And I was like, "Oh." I mean, I had no idea. I didn't have any clue. So I was like, "Oh, no, call him back. Tell him I love out. I do outlines all the time. I love them. I'm gonna outline this thing tomorrow." Like, and so I don't do like a chapter by chapter outline. I sort of do like an executive summary
Yeah.
and
Well,
then
and I think
find the
that's
story. And I never hold to it either, by the way.
right. Well, I think that's the point I was going to make. So I'm with you,
Yeah.
and it's not out of, any kind of piety or anything. It's just my brain doesn't work that way where outlines work. My fingers physically need to be moving on the keyboard for ideas to come to me. And I'm convinced it's all up there. I just can't access it until I'm actually writing, as opposed to someone
Yeah.
like you, Simon, who you can just see the big picture. If I even try to outline 3 or 4 chapters in advance, inevitably I go off-roading and a better idea just occurs to me. So I think when the publisher needs to know your next story, to your point, Ryan, I think you say, yeah, here's the story, and then who knows what they actually receive. But at least, the general premise is maybe the
Well,
same because I can't not change it as I'm writing it.
that's right. So the thing that's made this work so well, we do a chapter by chapter outline, but just in the same way that like if I'm writing and I kind of know where my story's going on one of my own books and then I have a better idea, I'm free to go explore that. With Simon, it's as easy as one of us picks up the phone and
Yeah.
goes, "Hey, I'm working on this part right now, and I just had this idea. What do you think?" And the cool thing about like our relationship, we can pretty quickly, and we never really disagreed, by the way. We can pretty quickly look at it and go, which one is better, and agree on that like instantly. So
Yeah.
then it's like, all right, we're gonna move from the outline a little bit. What does that do? And we find our way back onto it. So
Yeah.
I would say the fear that I've always had of an outline is you're so locked in at that point that if you have a better idea, you can't really go explore it. Has not been the case at all. What I have found is no, I think the authors like Simon that really do this chapter by chapter outline, it probably is a smarter way because you can write a book so much faster.
Well,
When
I
you
Yeah.
think I think that's true.
yeah,
Simon, I'm sure you can verify this. Whenever I know what I'm going to be writing, the actual physical act of writing is pretty easy. I mean, it's gotten easier over the years.
Right.
But again, I'm just not my head doesn't work that way, and I would love to be able to outline.
I think for me, when I started outlining, was when I was writing like 3 books every 2 years because I had very tight deadline.
Yeah,
And when I submitted my first outline to the Ludlum Estate, they needed an outline to approve the
of course.
story.
But that's
Uh,
because you're writing with somebody else's name in mind as
Right.
well.
And then I realized it made the actual writing so much easier. Because with tight deadlines, like most writer, maybe you guys are the exception, but I'm a master procrastinator. So I can wait and until I'm a little bit too close to the deadline and I don't know really what I'm going to do. So before I was outlining, I could write myself in a corner
Yeah, of
and
course.
then realize I am stuck here. I have to do so much backtracking to make that story work. And I didn't like that feeling. I don't like scrapping 20,000 words
Yeah.
because I don't know what I'm going to do with them. And I never want to be late. This is something that I've learned in the industry is that you cannot be late. Because when you have an entire team waiting for your book and you submit it late, then all the chain of production
Yeah.
is
Well,
scrapped.
of
So
course.
for me, doing the outline allowed me to breathe and be more comfortable and be able to deliver on time every time.
Yeah, I think there's this perception by non-writers, and maybe it's portrayed in movies of like, of course, like the writers like miss deadlines for by months, by years, and they're so precious that everyone's okay with it. But the cold reality is like this is a group project that you're in a corporate environment and you are part of a group. Just because you're the writer doesn't mean you're more important than the person designing the cover. You have to play by the rules. And there might be some latitude and maybe you miss deadlines, but that doesn't mean they're going to pick up the next book. And I don't think people appreciate how much being able to get along with others within the publishing universe is as important in writing as the writer as it is to any other, corporate. Because you hear from publishers like, yeah, that person is a great seller, but they're a dick. I don't
Yeah.
want to work with them anymore. That happens all the time. Yeah,
Especially, I think one of the industry secret to get book deals after book deal is to be easy to work with
a
and
hundred
respect the
percent.
people that are in your team. Give them respect. Don't act like a prima donna.
Right.
Just like you said, you're a clock part of the entire organism. You do your work, you respect other people's work, and it's gonna go well. You might not be the best guy selling the best book or the best author, but if you're easy to work with, you deliver on time, and your fans love your work, you're pretty guaranteed to get a renewal.
Yeah, I think that's true because, you don't have to sell, tens of thousands of copies to be somebody worth keeping. You don't even have to necessarily earn out your advance to be somebody who is profitable for the company. The other
Correct.
side of that whole equation, I think, are these, and I certainly was in this place too, and I'm sure you probably were too, when you get your first deal and your first maybe few books where you're just like, I can't believe I'm part of this show now. And you were almost like too willing to agree to anything. And you're not really asserting your own voice. With my own editor, we disagree on very little just because she's smarter than I am. Like all her changes, I'm like, oh yeah, I just couldn't see this for myself.
Right.
But if I do feel like disagreeing, I'll say it. And I think, I don't know if Ryan, was that your experience at all where you were just like so happy to be here that you would do anything anyone told you to do?
No, because I'd been in the industry. I just wasn't writing books, right? So
Yeah, that's
I
true.
did a
You were
lot
you
in
were
the
more savvy.
yeah, no. I knew like my debut novel, Fields of Fire. When we took meetings with publishers, we got into like real discussion about the series, which characters, what direction would certain things go, how would things play out, and I sort of had like this vibe back from them of like this is not going to work, like they don't get it, like they don't. I don't want to kill those characters. I don't want to do this and that. I could say like there was one of the big fives that we met with, the wife, eventual wife of my hero, who plays a big role in the series. She's like his moral compass.
Yeah.
Like that scene in like 300 when Leonidas like looks to the wife and she nods and he kicks the dude down the pit. Like that's really like what she is to the hero. And they were like, hey, like, can we kill her in this first book? And I was like, oh man, they don't get it at all. So it was like a no. And so I was very fortunate, to find a partner for that book in Tyndale, and they've been really great. I've not had that issue thus far. I mean, the closest I could come to that is little things writing with Simon. If I have an idea, you don't always like, we're writers. We don't usually like talk well through some of our ideas. Like they sound terrible in like a verbal pitch.
Right. We have it all in our head.
Right. Just trust me, dude, this will be fire. And then I hear it and it sounds dumb. Like it sounds terrible. And everyone's like, I don't think so, Ryan. And I will say, Simon, there's one thing in particular that like I really wanted to do. And I think everyone thought I was nuts. And he was like, to his credit, was like, dude, just go write it and let's see what it looks like.
Right.
And
you can't tell until you have that.
No, not at all. And that was my thing, is like, God, just trust me. I'll write it better than I'm saying it. But it was like the belief in each other to like, all right, well, there's a lot of comfort here. I think he can probably deliver that. And then we've run into that again. We wrapped up our second book together, and there was something that I pitched him. And I there was like two things I was working through, like a big twist. And then like there was another big twist, and I wasn't sure which way to go. And so I kind of was like, all right, this one, I'll pitch him this one. And it was the same thing. It was like, yeah, let's do it. So this is so funny. So then like Simon's finishing his part of this stuff, and we're going back and forth, and he calls me one day and I'm driving, and he's like, man, I just don't know about like that twist. I don't know if it works. I don't know. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, but I do have another idea. I want to pitch you. And it took like maybe 20 seconds for me to realize his idea was my other idea. And I was like, oh, dude, yeah, no, that was my backup plan. Just go, let's go do that. And it's really honestly that simple. Like that's what's been so cool about the partnership.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
So Simon, what was, when you talk about having the process figured out ahead of time, what was the process you decided on?
Me and Ryan?
Yeah. To write
really about like, I wanted to have somebody I'm 50% in it.
On the actual writing.
On the actual writing, like something that we like to say is that there's not a page that we haven't touched.
Yeah.
And we don't know who wrote what at some point because we edit each other all the time.
And that's true, by the way, because we got a bad review, and some dude that's like my biggest fan was like, I hate all the Ryan Steck pages. You can tell which ones they are. The Simon ones are fantastic. And I know that dude's lying because even I don't know which ones I wrote anymore.
So you didn't like break up POVs or anything. You just both kind of just wrote from whoever's perspective was on that page.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, there's not like I know people, we get asked this all the time. So they want to know, like, do you do chapter 1 and then Simon does chapter 2? And they want to know how it works. And it's not that simple, right?
Yeah,
it's not
that seems
simple.
like actually a very complicated way of doing it.
I agree. We would agree. So our whole thing is we both write the whole book. By the end of this, it's not my voice, it's not his. It really takes on a third voice that I think works really well. And the reviews, other than the one guy that really hated every word I wrote, which like we do this, Simon and I do this all the time. We've been in interviews and they're like, hey guys, who had this idea? And it's like, I don't know. I think it could have been me, but I could not confidently tell you that whatsoever. Like,
so I want to deconstruct that though a little bit. Like, what does that mean? Does that mean you literally both go away and write a book based on the outline and then come together with both your completed versions and then figure out what sections to keep? Or is it like pieces at a time?
No, but that'd be hilarious. That would be, no, it's more collaborative than that. It's really just going back and forth with something until we're happy with it and we like it.
Yeah. Got it. And did that, Simon, for you? Because I think when I think about the idea of collaborating, like the low-hanging fruit in terms of the benefit of it is, we could theoretically write a complete book in half the time it would normally take me. So I can have this as an extra project and still do my normal writing. Is that true?
For me, I can talk for Ryan because he's a machine. He writes faster than I do. But for me, two books a year. I did it for a couple of years. It was too much for
That's
me.
too
So I can
much.
do one book and a half. And so for me, writing my own thing and writing a book with Ryan, with my name and his name on it, allowed me to publish two books a year.
Right. So that's
So
the half a book. Yeah.
that's the half a book.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. For me, that was the result of that collaboration. When you look at how many words you do per year, how many books you can publish, that allowed me to get two books out a year instead of only one.
Yeah, and that's the other factor of it all is like how similar are you in terms of writing styles? So for example, I when I'm working on a novel, I'm only writing an hour a day, and that's between 500 and 1,000 words a day, 7 days a week. So I can actually produce, it takes the reality of it is it takes about 8 to 9 months to get that decent looking draft down. Um, but if I write more than that a day, I can tell I start getting sloppy. I start getting lazy. So to me, I have to hold it very much in reverence. I have friends who can write 4,000 words at a sitting, no problem. And I could never collaborate with them because I would just feel guilty all the time. And Ryan, it sounds like you write faster. You're maybe more of a machine. Were you ever like held up?
No, I mean because so my philosophy is write a chapter a day. 1,500 words to 2,000. If it's a big chapter,
That'd be great
2,500.
for me because my chapters are like 600 words.
Oh yeah, well, so yeah, mine are not. So it's like the way I look at this is with my own books. There's really no reason not to have a first draft. And look, give yourself the freedom to write a bad first draft.
Yeah,
Right.
of course.
So, so I try to have a first draft within 2.5 months. I just don't see a reason not to. If I'm writing 2,000 words a day, you know what I mean?
Right,
Like,
right,
you're 50 days, you're at 100,000 words. So
right.
that's the way I look at it. Probably because right now I have to. I'm writing 2.5 books a year, which is why I think I always look tired in these interviews. And Simon looks well rested and like he's been in the sun. I look pasty and tired and everyone. No, man, like it's a grind. But what I've learned is I love what you said. I don't feel like I write well after that.
Yeah.
So I try to get a chapter done. That gives me time to think about it. If I'm working with Simon, that gives me time to think about, talk with him, go back and forth, look at what he's doing. Like, but when I'm just soloing a book, it takes me maybe like 2.5, 3 hours to write. Then I have the rest of the day. I mean, I got 6 kids, and I have a wife who wants to see me every once in a while. Not a lot. Like, I come out of my office, and she's like, "Don't you have stuff to do?" And I'm like, Probably, yeah." And so I come back up here. But like, I found that if I try to write 2 chapters a day, I don't like the second chapter. What I have found is I'm not the kind of writer. There's a buddy of mine, Joel Rosenberg, another New York Times bestselling author, and he said, "You know why they call it a cursor? Like when you sit down at Microsoft Word, it just blinks at you, you feel cursed." And if I don't know what I'm
I
writing,
love that.
dude, I'm not very creative. Which is why, like, when you were pitching this whole, hey, well, we go sentence for sentence thing, I'm like, I'm gonna suck at that bad. I need to know what I'm writing. I have to see it in my head, and then I can go write it. But I can't sit there and just create. So I'll spend more time thinking about what I'm writing than I'm writing.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's spoken like a traditional pantser, right?
Yeah.
Because we did, but if you have that outline in front of you, it's a little bit you can hammer away a little bit more. And I think it's funny because we talk about like you just talked about it right there, Ryan. Just the simple and easy math of, and I say this all the time: 500 words a day, you can have an 85,000 word manuscript and not too much, and everyone's amazed by that. But the reality of it is like okay at the 20,000 word mark, now your editor comes back and you've got 3 months of edits to do on the last book. So you got to so I keep a little calendar because I'm always curious. And it always takes way longer than I think because you might be writing every day, but life gets in the way. You've got other you've got kids. Simon, I know you've got a very busy life, so, and Simon, to your credit, you have backed off a little bit and said like, I know my limits in terms of production. And that doesn't mean you can't do it. It means that I'm guessing you started to sense like, I can't be the best writer that I can be if I'm trying to do 2.5 books a year for your pace.
Right, exactly. Because I've always enjoyed what I've been doing. I mean, I'm having a lot of fun. But when it's three books, like fully written on just like, and I'm not talking about collaboration, but 3 books for me in 2 years was maybe a little bit much. Like 2 books a year as well was a little bit much. And I could do it for a couple of years, but after that, I was not enjoying the process as much. And I didn't want that. I didn't want to lose my passion. So I did have to take a step back and be a little bit more conservative about how I was going to write everything. Because you guys, the number of words that you can write a day amazes me. Like we've told you that offline before. I'm French Canadian, so for me, writing in English is probably a lot harder than it is
Of
for you
course.
guys,
Yeah,
right?
that's a
So I
whole
have to,
different level of complexity.
yeah, it is. So of course, like I'm getting better and better at it, and I think my writing is much better than the way I speak. And I know you guys understand 100% of what I'm saying, but it doesn't come as easy for me as I'm sure it comes for you.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm always impressed by that. Anyway, I just interviewed Clemence Michelon, and she, like, native French speaker, writing very well in English, and same as you. And it just, to me, the idea of, I'm not bilingual by any means, but the idea of conveying the nuance of what you're trying to say, and you hear it in your head, and then to convey that in another language, with that kind of level of subtlety, it's got to be frustrating, I would think, at a certain point.
Sometime it is, but now it's getting a little bit easier. I
Yeah,
mean, I'm at book 17 right now, so I know
right,
what I'm doing. I have a
right.
rhythm, and I'm sure I'm using like the same sentences I've used before. There's like a formula.
But that's part of your voice.
It is exactly. So it's easier now, but it's mostly now when I speak during interviews or things like this, because when I was with the RCMP, like Royal Canadian Mounted Police, I used to work in English every day. This was like we were speaking English every day. But now, since I'm writing full time, and we're at home, our kids are French, my wife's French. I barely speak any English except during the interview, when I'm on phone calls with my writer's friend, or during the conferences. That's
That's
about
so
it.
interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's hilarious too, by the way, because he says stuff in interviews or like just when we're working on a book, and it cracks me up. So like, I remember we were doing an interview one time, and he's like mid-interview, he's like, Ryan, what do you guys call it when it's just the one kid? And he's like, do you call it the lonely child or the single child? And I'm like, no, dude, neither. It's like an only child. You have an only parent or like a lonely parent, but like it's an
But
only
it's
child or
that's
like a
but it's
single
totally
parent.
logical. Like,
Yeah.
I know.
For me,
And
it
he
is.
laughs so hard. I use it all the time now. Oh, look, he's the lonely child. So I feel like I learn a lot, but I guess I didn't even know, and I'm his co-author. I didn't know that you don't speak in English that much. When you are writing, do you think in French and then have to like convert it to English?
I have to. Yeah.
Oh,
More
that's
and
what's
more
I didn't even know
actually,
that.
because when I started, I was still working, right? So everything was coming out in English. But now I think everything in French, and I need to translate in my head and make it a worthwhile sentence in English. So
yeah,
yeah, it takes a little
Wow.
bit longer.
that's
Yeah.
so funny. And I would think, just going back to the idea of collaboration, the other thing that I think about is there's something attractive about it, just to do something different. And this sounds very precious, but like, Simon, you're at 17 books, for example. I've written, I don't know, 13, 14, something like that. And I love it. Passion is still there. But after a while, you're like, something different would be kind of interesting. And that might, so for example, I'm writing this 45-minute murder mystery dinner for this charity auction that happened. And I'm putting way more work into this thing than I think I need to, but I'm like, this is exciting because I'm writing a script. They're casting people for it, and it's just fun. And I think collaboration is kind of this, like, it's a little bit of an unknown, and a little bit. Does it feel like you're shaking things up a little bit?
For me, I think I get addicted to the fun that you're describing. When you
Yeah,
write something that you're super proud of and you're like, wow. And the way it works with Ryan and I'm going to read what he does. So he's going to take the lead on something. I'm going to read it. And I get excited every time he sends me new material. Then I
yeah,
take over and I do a little bit and he reads it and he says, oh my God, this is so good. So it's always that little things in your brain that gives you fun. I kind of losing what it is, like the little formula. There's like is it dopamine or something like that
Yeah, yeah,
that get created.
yeah. It's
So
a
we get
dopamine hit.
that every time when we exchange pages, and I get it myself when I write my own book, and I'm proud of what I'm doing. Uh, so yeah, doing with Ryan bring that little spark, right? It's the new stuff that you get excited even more often because you discover what your partner is writing almost in real time. So it's really cool.
And Ryan, were you getting those dopamine hits, or were you like, "Oh, I
Oh
hope
yeah.
this email isn't about how much he hates what I just sent him"?
No, I mean, well, you always have those fears early, for sure, working with someone,
Right,
right?
right. When you're just first starting out.
Yeah, and I mean, I've heard the stories too. Like, I have a lot of friends that have co-written, and they're like, I could never write a sentence that they liked, and I'm like, that sounds brutal. We've never had that issue. No, I think you have to leave ego at the door, and so you have to both be very honest. Like, hey, did what I just do make this better or not? And is my idea better than yours, and is yours better than mine? And then you don't really keep score. You know,
Yeah.
whoever has the best idea, whoever has the best concept, whoever's saying it the best, wording it the best, go with that. You know,
Right.
we don't really keep, I mean, we mentioned like, oh, we want it to be 50-50. But if it turns out that it's like, hey, we used 52% of me or 53% of him on the net, like that doesn't, we don't think in those terms. And that's, I think what makes it work so well is
Yeah.
really, we mean, it's not just interview stuff. Like, it's true. I couldn't look at a page and tell you with confidence exactly who wrote what.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, gentlemen, we're going to wrap up. Before we do, we're going to do our own little storytelling, and Simon will have to translate into French Canadian and then translate back. So,
Right.
apologies for the hard work in advance. This is the making up portion of the show. I have 3 books that I chose at random from my bookshelf. We're going to choose a book, choose a random sentence from a random page. I'm going to read that sentence, and that'll be the first sentence in like a 2-minute long short story. So I'll read a sentence, and then maybe Ryan, you give me the next sentence, and then Simon, you give me the next sentence, and I'll do a sentence. And then when it
Cool.
goes completely off the rails, which will be very fast, I'll just call it. So I've got Matt Goldman's The Murder Show.
Great title, by the way.
It is he's a great guy.
Sick
Martin
title.
Edwards' The House on Graveyard Lane, and David Baldacci's The Simple Truth. So Ryan, pick one of those.
First one.
Murder Show. So Simon, give me a number between 1 and 294.
222.
All right, I'm going to quickly scan page 222 for a
I like
sentence.
that you went to like probably the final act of this one, where it's hopefully ramping up and we got something good to work with.
Well, we'll find out. A lot of
This could be brutal.
Okay. So um so Ryan, you can do whatever you want with this sentence. The character's name is Kala, Kalla, just for clarification.
Uh-huh.
Kala's eyes shine with tears, but she does not cry.
Kala's eyes shined with tears, but she does not cry. Behind her, the clock was ticking obnoxiously loud.
Simon.
Inside, she was actually laughing, thinking about the next trick she had up her sleeves.
But Kala warned herself not to get too far ahead. There was work to be done. And the most pressing issue was the body of the 17-year-old laying 10 feet from where she stood.
That's a long sentence for me to follow. She looked at her watch and thought to herself, 28 more seconds until the second body falls.
She ran to the kitchen, opened the drawer, picked up the biggest knife, and realized it was dull. She scratched her head, wondering why.
She cursed them again. Them, the people who created this game, who put her in this fake house with windows that didn't open and doors permanently locked. She only knew 5 people had to die before she could taste fresh air again. We can call it there.
Yeah, houses. Just yeah. All right.
It's really
Glad I
dark.
had to
You
follow
do
up.
really dark stuff.
I
Like,
know
I
it
was like,
always
man,
goes really dark. I mean,
I
it
was
depends
gonna
on who
go
my
with-
guest is.
I was gonna go with she looked at the doll knife and thought this is why they say to never bring a knife to a gunfight.
Oh, there you
oh,
go.
that's good. Yeah.
That would have worked well too. See, we collaborated. There's a three
It's-
writers collaborating on a great story right there.
I'll be totally honest with you. It's not all that different when me and Simon are alone on a Zoom call. Like, it's really not. I mean, you're probably darker than us, Carter, for sure.
It's just my
but it's not
nature.
all that different from our actual process, which is kind of hilarious.
Well, gentlemen, what a great chance to be able to talk to you, and congratulations on the second son. And I'll be at Thriller Fest, so I hope to at least see you longer than passing by on an escalator.
Yeah, it would be nice. At least one beer and some peanuts.
There you go.
All right, buddy. Thanks
care.
for the invite. It's
Thank
always
you for
nice
having
speaking
us.
with you.
You as well. Take care.
All right, ciao.
All right, that is it. That is my conversation with Simon Gervais and Ryan Steck. And I like at the end how they said, I go darker. I'm darker than they are. That is a badge of honor. I guess I can't help myself. I don't know why I immediately went to the idea of a dead 17-year-old, but must be Thursday. So if you want to find out more about the second son or about the authors individually, you can go to simongervaisbooks.com, or Ryan's website is therealbookspy.com. That's also his thriller universe platform. So check that out as well. And you can always head over to carterwilson.com to look at my books and my newsletter and all the good stuff on there. And you can go to unboundwriter.com to learn more about the services I offer to other writers. All right, that is it. We are done. I am done with this episode. Next episode dropping just next week. In the meantime, folks, take care.